Okay, let's unpack this. Think about it for a second. How do you actually measure if you've lived a good life? Is there like a scorecard?
Hmm.
Is it about hitting certain milestones, accumulating specific things, or is the whole idea of measuring it just fundamentally flawed somehow?
It's one of those huge evergreen questions, isn't it?
Hmm.
And we're diving into it today using some really uh, insightful source material.
Yeah.
Specifically, yeah, a chapter that takes a pretty sharp look at how we tend to gauge our lives
Yep.
and offers a strikingly different perspective.
Right. So the mission for this deep dive is to really dig into this source, understand why its critique of our usual metrics kind of resonates,
Mm.
and then explore the alternative way it suggests we might think about a life well lived. We want to see what key nuggets of insight this viewpoint holds for you, the listener.
Okay, so the source kicks off by looking at the conventional way, the sort of default way many of us measure life. It suggests we assess how good our life is based on how well reality matches up with the expectations or the trajectories we set out for ourselves, often pretty early on.
Like drawing a map of where you expect to go, and then years later checking if you followed the line perfectly.
Exactly like that.
And this whole idea of what success or a good life even looks like, the source points out, hey, this isn't some universal truth.
Yeah.
It's incredibly cultural. It changes across history. Right now, in our world, individual accomplishment is often seen as the gold standard.
That's the dominant metric. Now, yeah, contrast that with other times or places where maybe measuring life by religious devotion or community contribution or simply raising a family might have been the main thing.
Hmm.
But this modern focus on individual achievement, coupled with, the pursuit of pleasure, the source argues this frequently leaves us feeling, and I think the quote is quite powerful here, empty and stressed and exhausted and twisted in mental circles.
Wow. And the reason for that feeling, is it this idea that nothing looks the way we think it will?
That's a big part of it.
Like, nobody reflects on their lives and concludes with, yes, this is exactly how I thought it would go. We're judging this messy, unpredictable reality against a rigid, preconceived notion.
Precisely. And what's really interesting is how the source connects this back to something incredibly primal.
Oh, how so?
It suggests these modern pursuits, the desire for status, pleasure, recognition, are essentially our basic survival instincts.
Mm-hmm.
The drive for sex and pleasure and fame and recognition and ego-augmenting attention, just dressed up to seem civilized.
Dressed up? How does it mean dressed up?
Well, in the source's view, it's dressed up in everything from, say, climbing the corporate ladder at the office
Okay.
to presenting a perfect image on social media or even navigating dating apps. It's still that fundamental drive to acquire, to be recognized, to gain attention. It's just played out in these modern settings.
Huh. So striving for that corner office or, I don't know, a certain number of followers, the source is basically saying that's just our inner animal wanting the biggest banana or the loudest roar.
In a way, yeah, a sort of sophisticated version of it.
Yeah.
And the source draws this comparison to actual animals.
Right.
Animals operate on instinct. They don't psychoanalyze themselves. They don't set 5-year plans. They don't strive to be more than what they are.
They just are.
They just are. And their instinctive existence, it works precisely because they lack that distinctly human urge to constantly evaluate and try to, transcend their nature.
Which leads us right to the source's core critique of the conventional measure, doesn't it?
It does.
By trying to measure good using these external benchmarks, images, ideas, and clean storylines, the source says we sorely miss the point.
Yeah, we missed the point. And we're always going to fall short of that perfect linear trajectory because, as the source puts it, we were not built to be more than we are.
At least not in that external upward mobility kind of sense.
Exactly. The perspective here is that we were built for the messiness and simplicity of everyday life. And chasing that external more, that perfect image, isn't true transcendence or growth. The source frames it more as avoidance.
It's avoidance.
Yeah, like a strategy of the ego to escape the uncomfortable reality of being human with all its unpredictability and, frankly, lack of perfect control.
Okay, that's a powerful challenge to the status quo. So if measuring life by achievements and sticking to a plan is fundamentally flawed and leaves us feeling empty, how does the source suggest we measure a good life? This is the pivot, right?
This is the big pivot. Moving from those external metrics to internal state and experience.
Okay.
It's a radical shift, really. The source offers a whole different set of criteria.
Mm.
Instead of asking, what did you do?
Yeah.
It's asking, what did you become? What
Right.
did you feel? What did you learn?
So how do we count that? What are some of these alternative measures it proposes? Give us some example.
Okay, well, one is measured by how much you still want to change it.
Huh. Wanting to change your life is a good sign.
It suggests a recognition that growth is possible, that things could be better, and you know it deep down. Another one is your capacity to feel discomfort.
Discomfort, that seems counterintuitive. We spend so much effort avoiding discomfort. Why would that be a measure of a good life?
Well, the source implies it's a measure of resilience, maybe, and growth. The willingness to be in discomfort, to maybe lean into it, suggests you're not just running from challenges.
Which is key to learning, I guess.
Exactly. It's also measured by the extent to which you've questioned yourself, how many times you've changed your mind.
Ah, so intellectual and personal evolution, letting go of old certainties. That makes sense.
And related to that, it's measured by the series of dogmas you've adopted and then left behind.
Oh, I like that. The dogmas you've left. It's about shedding limitations, not just collecting beliefs.
Precisely. And then it turns to connection and relationship, but maybe not in the way we usually think. It measures life by the family you chose for yourself and the number of coffee cups over which you've had funny and serious and hurtful and beautiful talks.
So the depth and quality of human connection, not just the quantity or the labels.
Exactly. It also gets very personal, mentioning the number of long walks you've taken by yourself and journal pages you filled with the incoherent thoughts.
Right, acknowledging that internal landscape, the self-reflection.
Yes, that inner world is crucial in this view. The capacity for self-reflection, processing, it includes the evolution of the way you philosophize your existence and how your perception of other people has evolved, changed over time. And here's a point that really stood out to me.
Yeah.
It mentions the days you've soberly worked despite the shards of passion having dissolved.
Oh, that distinction. The source says a good life isn't passionate, it's purposeful.
Right.
That's the line. Passion is the spark that lights the fire. Purpose is the kindling that keeps the flame burning all night.
So it's about dedication beyond that initial excitement, showing up even when it's hard. Absolutely. It shifts the value from those fleeting highs to sustained, meaningful effort. And this perspective, it doesn't shy away from difficult measures either.
Like what?
Like the number of relationships you've had the courage to end.
Wow, okay. That's challenging. Ending relationships. That usually feels like failure in the conventional sense.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the source flips it completely. It says the easy way out is to stay. The comforting idea is to settle. The liberation, the mark of a good life in this context, is reaching for that unnameable feeling beyond what you can currently conceive.
Instead of staying stuck in comfort or fear.
Right. Rather than settling. Reaching for something you can't even define yet. Valuing that unknown potential over just comfortable stagnation.
Okay. What else?
It also includes moments of just simple, profound presence, like the times you sincerely felt the sunlight across your bedsheets in the morning was awe-inspiringly divine.
Connecting back to that messiness and simplicity of everyday life we talked about earlier, finding the sacred in the ordinary.
Precisely. And finally, among these other measures, it includes, the ways you can count you were a better person than before, and the ways you'd like to be better in the future, the number of things you lost and learned to not attach to anymore.
And then go. Detachment.
Yeah. And that powerful idea about finding another ocean's worth of capacity within yourself when you were pushed beyond what you thought was the absolute end of your limit.
The resilience found in hitting rock bottom, maybe, and discovering some hidden strength you didn't know you had.
Exactly. So pulling all of this together, the source's perspective becomes really clear. A good life is not measured by what you do, it's about what you are.
What you are.
And it's not how many people you loved, but how much.
The quality over quantity again, it completely reframes the conversation from an external score to an internal state, doesn't it?
Totally. It has, and this is key, nothing to do with how well things turn out or how seamlessly the plan is followed.
The perfect plan goes out the window.
Pretty much. It argues that the real value isn't in achieving the plan, but in navigating the unexpected turns. It's about the bits of magic you stumble upon when you dive off path.
Right. And critically, it's not about the things that didn't work out. It's about what you learn when they don't.
Those learnings, the source calls them bits and pieces, awakenings and knowledge. They're what build and make you able to perceive things greater than you can currently imagine. They actually expand your capacity for life itself.
Wow. Which brings us to that really powerful line the source uses to kind of summarize this entire idea.
Well, what's that?
It suggests that A good life is not how it adds up in the end, but what you're counting along the way.
What you're counting along the way.
Okay.
So we've journeyed from this conventional, external, outcome-based measure of a life hitting goals, following a plan,
Hmm.
to this, frankly, radical alternative presented in the source, which focuses on internal growth, learning from difficulty, the quality of connection, the simple experience of being present. It's a
Yeah.
huge shift in perspective. It really challenges us, to examine what we're truly valuing and paying attention to in our day-to-day existence.
Which leaves you, the listener, with a pretty profound question from the source material to sit with, I think.
Yeah.
If a good life isn't how it adds up in the end, but what you're counting along the way, what are you counting? Or maybe if it's not about what you do, but what you are, how does that shift the way you view your own life right now?